So Biochematics has made a couple of video responses to me, um, and he was pretty critical, honestly. Not just of the last two videos that I posted, which I figured would tick some people off, but of my whole approach in general. Um, because he says I don't say anything that can be tested, that's falsifiable. I just speculate, and I think he's probably right for the most part about that, but um, I don't think, I don't have a choice but to speculate. I'm fascinated by science and nature, and I think empiricism is important, but it hasn't satisfied my wonder about the existence of the universe and my own existence in that universe. So I ask more questions. I ask questions that we can't solve based on some empirical measurement. I ask qualitative questions that can't be quantified. And, for me, nature itself includes these subjective, qualitative, um, moral aspects. And so, when you ask me something like, do I think psychology um, can be explained naturalistically? What do we mean by naturalism? How do we define nature? Because if nature is, um, the sum total of not only matter but experience, because I'm a panpsychist or a pan-experientialist, I don't think there is such a thing as pure extension devoid of some sort of interior enjoyment of itself. I think all matter experiences in some way. Not, my fork isn't aware of itself as a fork, um, but there's something it's like to be aluminum. It's got a certain, resonance, and it's that resonance, that interior, vibration or energy that gives it its material qualities. And it's not that the material qualities aren't real. Obviously, you know, aluminum is pretty real, and a bell is a great example of how an inorganic object, in this case an artifact, can have an interior um, to it. And how do you witness this interior? How can we test whether or not this bell has an interior? Well, we have to play it, um, and then we can hear it speak. So it's got a surface. It's material being, but it's got a face. It's got a personality. It's got a way of responding to our interaction with it. That means that it's not merely an object. Um, so if nature includes, you know, subjectivity as well as objectivity, then yeah, of course, psychology can be explained naturalistically. But if we conceive of nature as something entirely inert and purposeless and merely mechanical, then no, psychology cannot be um, explained naturalistically, because the human experience, the human consciousness, is purposeful, is creative, um, is aware of value, and all these subjective things. And if we say that nature completely lacks all of these things, we're creating this, I would say, completely artificial um, separation between the human and the cosmos, the universe. I don't think we ought to make that separation, um, because when we do, you know, we end up being positivists, and bioinformatics recommended a well respected within mainstream psychological academia, um, a fellow named Cattell, Cattell, and I'd never heard of him before, honestly, but I looked up his Wikipedia page, and he's basically a behaviorist, and we've learned a lot about how to train animals and influence people. Advertising is based on principles discovered by behaviorist experiments. Um, but if we only, if we're going to study the psyche at all, if we're going to have a field of science called psychology, but we're only going to allow ourselves to pay attention to what can be counted quantitatively or statistically measured in some way based on a behavioral response, then we're basically leaving the vast majority of the psyche completely out of reach. Because our psyches are this vast reservoir of not only our personal experience, but a cultural, a whole history of cultural symbols and archetypes and biological memories that go back billions of years and that are all present now in our psyche, which includes all this unconscious, mostly unconscious stuff, and then this island of consciousness called the ego. If we only pay attention to what the body does in the world, we're missing all of that stuff. So that's why, if I wanted to learn something about the psyche, I wouldn't ask a behaviorist. I would ask someone like Carl Jung, Viktor Frankl, people that recognize that the psyche is an interior and not something that can be quantitatively measured. But what else to say? I mean, I don't say anything on my channel that I expect people to believe. I don't pretend to have some sort of authority. I'm my own author, and I speak my mind freely, and I invite people to respond. And if that's in a critical fashion, all the better, because then if it's truly valid criticism, then it gives me an opportunity to reevaluate what I think and how I exist in the world. So I can't say I'm sorry for making my videos with the sort of tone that I do, and making videos on the sorts of topics I do. I think these topics are important, and bioinformatics invented that, admitted that, and I'm going to continue talking about this stuff. The fact that you can't test it empirically doesn't mean that these aren't important questions that we have to ask. Empirical knowledge is great, but it's not satisfying if you're truly questioning the nature of existence and reality. At least not for me. And if it's satisfying for you, then fine. Everybody needs their satisfaction, but from my understanding of human existence, it seems that we all have some way of expressing our spirituality, and some of us express it religiously, some of us express it athletically, some of us artistically, some of us scientifically. But it's all based on a passionate need to bring ideas into reality, which is how I defined religion in the videos that bioinformatics is responding to. So I'm running out of time, but I guess, oh, I brought up phenomenology, and I think we could continue this discussion talking about the relation of phenomenology to empiricism, but we'll see if it gets to that. Thanks for listening.